Hello everyone and welcome back to the McDonald Chronicles. I am so happy you're here. If you are new, my name is Gianna and welcome to this experiment that is my reading life. The last time we were together, we talked about sort of how my reading went in 2025 and some changes that I'm making in 2026 to sort of get my reading back on track and continue to improve and read more. I really think if we all spent more time reading and going outside, everyone would be much happier. So in my last video, I talked about sort of my new strategy to have three books going at once. And this again comes from a parents review article. I will link it down below, so if you're interested in reading it, you can find it. But in this, there was a quote from a woman who was considered to be well-read and had read lots of books. And she mentioned that she always has three books going at one time: a stiff book, a moderate book, and a novel. And just to kind of give you a brief summary, that stiff book is something where maybe it's a little harder to read, takes a little bit longer to get through. Moderate, again, think of Goldilocks. So maybe not something you can read right before bed, maybe takes a little bit more time. And then that novel. I had mentioned for myself that for me, stiff is going to be nonfiction, moderate is going to come from the Well-Educated Mind book list, and the novel is like a free space. What I wanted to start on this channel was sort of a what I'm reading now, and to sort of give you what those three books are, not every month, but every once in a while, so you can kind of see what books I'm considering in those three categories, how it's going, just to sort of maybe give you some ideas of what you can read or just to kind of think about it for yourself. So the first book that I'm reading is my stiff book. It's called Morning Time, A Liturgy of Love by Cindy Rollins. What I will say is I wouldn't necessarily consider this book stiff as in the fact of it's hard to get through. I've actually already finished it, but I'm going through as a reread, which I'll explain in a moment. But it's definitely not a book that was hard for me to get through. But for myself, just to make it easier, I'm considering every nonfiction to be a stiff book, just because I don't personally like having multiple nonfiction books going at once unless one is an audio. So I wouldn't put this like in my moderate or my novel category. So having that like sectioned off in my brain works better. To you, this might be something where this is like a moderate, or I wouldn't consider it a novel, but this might be like a moderate for you, or just something you have on your nightstand. But for me, because for me this year, stiff is nonfiction, this is what I was going with. So I got this book for Christmas. I finished it very quickly because it really only is, the whole thing itself is almost 300 pages. However, pedagogy and the philosophy part is really only about 70 pages. Let me see. Yeah, literally exactly 70 pages. So essentially what happens is this part of the book is the pedagogy and philosophy, and then this part of the book is all anthology. So what Cindy does is she takes you sort of along her family's journey for morning time in the first part of the book and how to implement it in your own home. And then in this section of the book, so the remaining almost 150, 200 pages, sort of gives you ideas of things that she talked about, and it's more of like a resource. And so for me, I just considered reading this book to be reading the first 70 pages, the pedagogy and philosophy part of it, and then the remaining 150 is just a resource that I will comb through when I need it. So this obviously is something that I think is worth owning since it has that big anthology part in the back. I finished it really, really quickly, and I was taking notes and all that sort of stuff, but after I finished it, I kind of felt like I had gone through it too quickly. So I'm giving it another reread through, which has been nice because I am picking up on things that I didn't read the first time. And then once I do that, I'll kind of shelve this and use it as a resource and then pick another stiff book to go through. So far I've really, really enjoyed this. I'm not super familiar with Cindy Rollins other than the fact that I know she kind of coined the term morning time, but I know she's very big in the homeschool space. And I have seen this book come up from a lot of moms who are implementing morning time in their home with their kids. It's sort of a way to start your day with something beautiful. So thinking about doing poetry with your kids, or Bible reading, or maybe going over a composer study or artist study, things like that. Sort of all those morning baskets you see, maybe if you're familiar with the homeschool space, it kind of all comes from this. It's something we're implementing full force in my house right now, just because my child is very young, but something we're sort of dabbling with and something I wanted to know about before sort of going full force in a couple of years. So again, this will be more of a resource, but this has been really good to have as a stiff book, if you will. Okay. And then next up for my moderate category, again, it's all the books coming from the Well-Educated Mind book list. I certainly don't anticipate finishing this book list this year, probably not even in the next 10 years. I think this is something that I'm going to go through very slowly. I don't think the moderate category will always be books from this list, but for this year, again, because I know this is a busy year, sort of to give myself guardrails, it's a great way for me just to say what's next on the list and just pick that up. And then sort of a nice thing that I've been doing for myself, what I have is a library copy, but I'm kind of rewarding myself where once I finish the book, if I do have a library copy, or maybe I got like a really cheap paperback copy used, to sort of once I finish it to kind of buy like a nice hardback version of, like I've read this classic and it can go on my shelf and then I can reread it, which is the point. I think one of the, not to like get too off topic here, but one of the points for me going through this is not to just like check this box that, yeah, I've read all these books. It's to read these books, but I'm also like, I'm taking notes. So every chapter, I'm narrating every single chapter, which makes it moderate because it makes it take a long time. Even though technically Don Quixote is a novel, I am narrating every single chapter, which makes it take longer than just like flying through it. So for me, doing this the first time, having the book on my shelf, then it's kind of like in the future, I can pick it up again and just sort of read it to just read it and know I know the story and I know the characters, and it can just kind of be like a hug. Like I already read it, I already know about it. So I kind of made that reward for myself to be like, once I finish it, I can get a really nice copy of it. Probably the Everyman's Classic. Those are nice. So again, I don't know if I mentioned this. It's the first book on the list is Don Quixote by Miguel Cervantes. This book is large, but it is actually very funny. I read this book in high school in Spanish. I don't think we read the entire thing. We definitely did not read the entire thing. We read like passages and chapters of it, and then we watched the movie, which actually I think is giving me some really good background because I'm familiar with pieces of the story, and when I get to certain chapters, it's sort of all coming back to me. So I started reading this on my iPad because it's a classic, so most of them you can get for free from your library or just like anywhere online, on Apple Books, whatever. But I really wanted a hard copy of it because sometimes I find when I read on the Kindle, when I read on an e-reader, I just sort of skim. So I wanted to slow myself down a little bit. And I also didn't want to be reading this before bed with like the blue light and all that stuff. So I found a copy from my library, the Penguins Classic, which I was happy about because she is specific, at least for this book, I'm sure for others. Susan's very specific about the versions you should be reading, and especially for a book like Don Quixote, it's been translated. So it's not only having the version, but a good translation. So the Penguin Classic was deemed to be a good translation, but I'm really, really enjoying it. If you're not familiar with the story, essentially it's about an elderly man who is fascinated with knighthood. He's read probably hundreds of books on being a knight, and to the point where he thinks he is one. And so now you're kind of following him on his adventures. But it's been really fun to go through. I'm really, really enjoying it. It definitely, again, it takes longer because I'm narrating it, but it's been a good read. And I feel like I've read so much more, but you can tell, like I really haven't read that much, probably maybe a quarter of the book. It's not 1,000 pages. It's just shy of 1,000 pages. It is a behemoth. Like it is not a quick book. They're not all like this. But I'm really excited to see the progression of, like starting with a book like this and then moving on to like a more modern book towards the end of the book list in the fiction genre. So that's what we have for the moderate list. And then for the novels, I have a few. So when I'm recording this, it's like just we're still technically in Christmas when I'm recording this. So I want to show you kind of like what I just finished for my novel, what I'm reading next, and then where I'm going after that, kind of for a specific reason. So I just finished this book, which is called The Golden Age Christmas Mysteries. So Otto Penzler, I believe I'm saying that correctly, he put together like a culmination of short stories, just written by a bunch of older mystery authors. And they are all short stories all around the holidays. I picked this up in a bookshop on one of our holiday trips this year, and it was definitely not something I'd ever heard of before. Completely random purchase, and I loved it. I had to slow myself down because I really wanted to like sink in and just like really enjoy it. I think what I loved most about it was because all of these stories were published as short stories, they really have to grab your attention like right away. Like you don't have 50 pages to get my attention. You have 3 paragraphs. And so it was really, really fun. And some of them were like whodunit mysteries. There was like a locked room mystery in there. Some of them were just sort of weird things that have happened around Christmas time. So it was it was fun. I really, really liked it. If you're a mystery person, like if you like kind of Agatha Christie sort of mysteries, I really think that you would enjoy this. So definitely add it to your list for, the Christmas time next year. My current novel is The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year. This is our book club book. So I haven't started it yet, but I anticipate just kind of like based on the book, it's a mystery, but based on it, I fully anticipate getting through this book within a few days. This is the type of book that I'll fly through. Probably not one I would have picked up myself, but it's supposed to be like really cute, easy read. It'll be a fun like book club discussion, and it'll be fun to read like the last few days of the Christmas season. But because I know I'm only going to be reading that one for a couple of days, I wanted to show you really what's probably going to be most of my reading from the now until the next time that I talk about this, which is Agatha Christie's Midwinter Murder. So when I went to London a couple years ago, they had all 4 seasons. I didn't know this, but Agatha Christie has a short story book for each season. So there's Midwinter Murders. Don't do it again. My dog just tried to literally run through it again. If you were here last time, my dog completely just knocked off my mic. Okay, and they were going again. So she's got 4 books for 4 seasons. There's a winter one, a summer, a spring, and a fall. And when I was in London, I saw them, and I didn't pick them up. I think I didn't think I'd have room in my suitcase, but I've literally been thinking about them since then, and they have been on my list. So for Christmas this year, I asked for the Midwinter Murder because I figured it'd be really fun to read through when it's like chilly out and, with hot cocoa and warm tea and things like that. And since I loved having the Christmas short stories as well, like all together, I think this is going to be a huge hit. So if this is as much of a hit as I think it is, most likely you'll see the other 3 seasonal reads on my reading list this year. Can you hear my dogs drinking water? That's what I get for filming out in the open. I'm really excited to read this, and if I love it, which I'm anticipating I will, the other 3 will definitely show up on my reading list for my novels for the rest of the year. So they won't all be mysteries, the novel category. It just sort of happened that way. I do love mysteries, so I think that's just where I'm gravitating towards right now. Definitely won't be all, but definitely excited about where it's going so far this year. So that is my 3 books, my 3 categories, at least for the first part of the year. I'll definitely catch you up in the future again to just kind of tell you how it's going and to also share with you what I'm reading. So stick around, and I will see you next time. Cheers.